If you look another example, Hot Ones, almost 3 billion views on YouTube, 12 million subscribers, and they started their podcast, and after 10 episodes, it's like nothing. Why would they stop if it produces so much money? Is creating a podcast worth of your time, effort, and money? What is a return on investment, like in a real world, not in La La Land? We all know how much money Joe Rogan makes, $100 million. But you're not Joe Rogan, are you? So let's move on. For example, Stephen Bartlett, which is #1 podcast in the UK after Joe Rogan, of course. He said a year ago that his podcast makes $1.2 million per year. Okay, not per month, not like streamers, YouTubers, per year. And we don't count expenses into that. He's got almost 1 million subscribers on YouTube, and he's got in total 44 million of views on YouTube. And he makes 1 million per year from the podcast. Not profit, just literally turnover. And that is actually his lowest income stream that he's got. This is his words. He said it's the lowest income stream. So why does he do it? Number 1, because he really enjoys it. Number 2, networking. Meeting amazing people and contacts, which lead to opportunities. And those, of course, lead to money. It doesn't have to be direct return on investment with the podcast, but it can be indirect, and it's going to make you more money than you ever thought. But you cannot go into the podcasting game being like, oh, I have like £10,000 budget and I want to make 100K. Like, that doesn't work. So how can you make money from your podcast when you grow it? So first of all, I would recommend 100% get your podcast on YouTube, because the most straightforward way how to make money from anything, really, any kind of media content, is YouTube. Plus, they are introducing YouTube Shorts monetization, so you have another opportunity to get attention, new audience, and some money. I would recommend to do a vodcast, meaning video podcast. In terms of the monetization of, your host, for example, it's ridiculous. It's between $25 to $50 per 1,000 downloads, which is basically ridiculous. It's not only ridiculous, but it destroys your message, because these ads you cannot really influence. They are played in front of your podcast, in between, at the end. And it's, it's kind of like sell your soul to the devil, because basically, if you once you agree to this, you are not in control really of any kind of like what's going on in the ads. So the best way to make any money is to get sponsors. And if you're doing the video, so YouTube vodcast, right? Spotify supports videos right now to compete with YouTube. You have a video version, and you can also have product placement. Stephen Bartlett has Huel, like a drink or whatever, on his table. And this is a product placement. It's completely non-aggressive, and it's just there. And it's just like America's Got Talent, that everybody has this Pepsi or Cola or whatever cup in front of them. Like, it's very easy way to advertise and basically get money for it. Of course, you cannot do it if you don't have a YouTube channel, if you don't have a video version of your podcast. I would always say do and buy some cameras and invest and do a video podcast. However, if you're just starting out, Stephen Bartlett, he started out with a 90-pound microphone and a laptop, and he literally recorded it, edited it, and published it, and it cost him 90 pounds. Plus probably some editing software, but maybe he did it in Audacity, I don't know. So he came from 90-pound microphone situation, and he grew podcast, and now currently he's got 40,000 pound equipment in total in his studio. So of course, once you make some money, you invest, but he's been very successful at his businesses. So he actually didn't have the money from the podcast yet, but he could invest the money he makes in other business into the podcast to grow it. The biggest return on investment basically for him is people know who he is, he gain more audience, and of course more business contacts through his podcast for the guests that he interviews. But in terms of money making, this is peanuts comparing to the actual business, or having a Twitch account and being super gamer or a YouTuber and so on. This is what people make in a month. I don't like saying like, no, you can't do it, you're not going to do it, you're not going to achieve it, because people tell me this all the time and I completely disregard this. So of course you can be another, you can be the next Joe Rogan, Stephen Bartlett, and make money from the podcast. But as I mentioned already, like, don't be in it for the price. Don't be in it for the money, because people will see right through it. And people need to see that you actually enjoy doing what you're doing. And number one reason how, or actually number one way that Stephen Bartlett grew his podcast was consistency. So he said that being consistent, because he was just like publishing, episodes here and there. And if he took like 2-week break, 2 weeks or a month or whatever, because he split it into seasons, etc., etc., it felt like he needs to start from scratch. And he said, like, people move on. You lose the audience. So every time you take a break, you drop in the graph of data. So everything drops. And he said, from now on, we're going to publish once a week, every Monday. Sometimes he publishes twice a week, it doesn't matter. But like at least once a week, it's there. And he said it brought him 10x results. And this is basically the way he grew the podcast, apart from the fact of creating high quality content, of course. If you make it big on YouTube, of course, you make money from Google ads, right? Played in front of your video, in between, at the end, etc., etc. You make money from YouTube Shorts very shortly, and so on and so on. So this has nothing to do with your sponsorships, paid promotions. So basically, you can take advantage of that as well without any kind of additional effort. But of course, you need a lot of people watching your videos. And of course, your podcast needs to be kind of friendly for the ads, not like too controversial, because then you're not going to make much money, like me. And just kind of like reality check, like supporting this theory. If you look at a lot of companies or individuals who had pretty good head start, for example, Michelle Obama, you will see like she did literally like 14 episodes and then gone, And of course there are limited series of the podcast, Spotify exclusives, but it just seems like, oh yeah, I'm doing this podcast, it's big, a lot of promotion, and 14 episodes or 4 episodes, podcast with 10 episodes, and it's gone forever. If it made them so much money, why would they stop? It doesn't make sense. It means that it took a lot of effort and they didn't get a return on investment. That's why they stopped. Meghan Markle, before, so she had a podcast, right? And now she doesn't publish anymore. But like her podcast led to Netflix series launch, the book, Harry's book that's coming out next week. And it's kind of like just to draw attention, but not really producing any money, to be honest. If you look another example, Hot Ones, almost 3 billion views on YouTube. 3 billion views on YouTube, 12 million subscribers. And they started their podcast, and after 10 episodes, it's like nothing. Why would they stop if it produces so much money? And they have the audience. But obviously, people don't want to go on the podcast when they can watch it on YouTube. And this is another kind of like catch-22, because if you do a vodcast, you publish it on YouTube, in order to grow your podcast, people just might go on YouTube, right? But you can still call it a podcast. Piers Morgan, a very successful podcast, especially in the UK. I think it's like top 6 in the news. And of course, his YouTube channel producing a lot of money. He does it as a podcast as well. And I'm leaning towards explaining repurposed. So Piers Morgan, Uncensored, Gary Vaynerchuk, The Gary V Experience, Grant Cardone, The Cardone Zone. Everybody in terms of like influencers or entrepreneurs, the shows, the news, they repurpose. They want to say, yeah, you can listen, the podcast. It's all about accessibility in the end, reaching as many people as you can. They create this, TV show, news, YouTube show, Instagram live stream, etc., to create content. And then they repurpose that content, but the primary audience is on YouTube. And you can do like shorts and TikToks and Facebooks and Instagram reels and so on. But then you have the content. So why not turn it into a podcast episode? So this is what these people that I mentioned do. However, they don't actually produce original podcast content, because there's no return on investment for them at all, because their time is super valuable. And if they literally take a portion and create original podcast content, it's not going to pay off. However, they create content and they are in the podcasting world because they are mostly on other people's podcasts. So it's kind of like they want to say, yeah, I have my podcast. Yes, I do. But I'm not putting that much time into it. And I publish every day, every week, because I'm actually creating content for YouTube, or I'm recording podcasts with someone else, or I'm speaking at the conference and I turn this audio into a podcast without any additional effort. That's the bottom line. So there's another way that you can actually build something and then have your podcast. And to give you some motivation at the end, of course, you can become another Stephen Bartlett, starting with 90-pound microphone. Or you can be Alex Cooper, Call Her Daddy podcast. And she started a podcast as a co-host. And then she started a YouTube channel and now she's huge. Almost 1 million subscribers, 44 million views in 2 years. Pretty good. And she started from nothing. So basically, I can leave it there. And I don't want to say you can't do it, you will never do it, you will never achieve it, because you might. Please, if you do, comment below and email me at nicole@nicolevan.com. And if you have any questions, comment below. I'm going to answer the comments, those that make sense. And subscribe to my channel. I'm going to post more about hacks, life hacks, money making, be real, commenting on what's going on in the world, as well as the video industry, the film industry, the media industry, TV shows and so on. It's definitely everything apart from boring. So subscribe. If you do have any questions about podcasting, I do also have tutorials and in terms of how to edit your podcast on any budget, how to start a podcast, where to host your podcast. So just check out my channel. I'm going to put some videos in here somewhere in the description as well and continue to learn. But yeah, this is the real world reality check. So if you like it, like it. If you have questions, comment and subscribe.